pretty much all the interesting effects happening here. And one effect that we're getting, which is really hard, this splitting here between the two, you can see it's gonna share that, it's gonna create some kind of connection between the two mushrooms. And we also don't have a lot of mushroom shapes. I mean, we have them, but they're not, as we progress through the sim, they're not that visible anymore. And I'm gonna try and do something that will probably drastically change the sim as an idea to, if you guys wanted to fix that. I personally don't think it's an issue, especially that after what's happening is very, very interesting, and there is a lot of interesting effect visuals happening, so it's not gonna be an issue to have that for a couple of frames. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna lower the buoyancy. I think it's too high. You can see these are supposed to be very tall, but right now they're getting eaten by this guy. So I'm gonna lower the buoyancy, and I'm going to animate the force that we have, the velocity that we have, that adds the displacement onto the surface. So I'm gonna animate that to be really strong at the beginning, and probably around frame 30 go back to normal. And it's gonna change the sim, and we'll talk about that. So let me save this as and call it double mushroom so we can remember it, and then I'm gonna call this tweet bell. Okay, so let's go back. And by the way, we're working on at the mid-level resolution right now. So 25, 30, okay. Let's go back, let's go to 25, and I'm going to set keys for all these guys. And let's go back to the first frame. I'm going to increase the noise. Actually, let's go even higher. 16, I'm going to increase this to 60. And I'm gonna lower this to, increase this to 3. So we lower the resolution tiny bit in the hope that I can run it real time and without having to pause. And with this idea, with this whole system, changing the initial velocity just a changing the initial density or the shape just a tiny bit is going to result in creating something completely different. Now, by completely different, I mean in terms of silhouette, in terms of shapes and everything, it's going to change a lot. And the key to randomizing the sims really is not to change a lot of the settings, but to rather change what's coming into the system. And so that's a note there. Okay, I think it's changing a lot because we're getting a lot of velocity now. Let's see. Yeah, too much velocity, but you know, it could work. I mean, we can make it work. We can make anything work. Let's take a look at it shaded. Nice. Yeah, it's a very different effect though. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to take this divergence, and I feel like if we add more to the volume, we're gonna get something really, really interesting. So let's move this guy back to 0. And let's increase this to 2.5, and let's move it to 9. And this is what I'm going to do. Again, I don't have a clear idea what's going to happen, but I think that the initial blast is very, very interesting, and I want to see how that looks with if we expand it a bit more. Actually, maybe I can sim it now in real time. Let's see what's going to happen. So the resolution is quite high now for interactive preview, but I think we can get an idea. Now, this is basically how I would go about tweaking the sim. Let's say you have a shot. you start off with creating a initial blast, and then timing the how fast it goes up, how fast it expands, and how much temperature it has. Work on the noise of the surface. Right now, everything we've tweaked this from previously, so I'm not spending a lot of time on that. And generally, I would have some kind of initial setup that I would start with and tweak everything. The R&D is where you create these initial platforms or setups that you can reuse and expand upon. So I'm gonna let this run for a couple more frames, and then we'll continue in a bit. Thanks. So I have the sim ready now, and this is the result that we've got. And as you can see, we still have the mushroom shapes on both sides, but there is a lot of interesting details here that are really hard to get in using various other solutions. I think it's going to be really challenging to create these. And let me show you guys one frame without the temperature. And let's take a look at the resolution. Let's take a look at it using a higher resolution. So we don't have a lot of voxels, but you can see we're getting a crazy amount of details, look at that, a lot of interesting shapes. And these kind of silhouettes, these kind of forms and shapes are really hard to get. And the fact that we're able to get this means that we have a lot of potentials in the solver. Now, we're not going to be able to break up the velocity, the initial emission, a lot using the technique that we have, because what we've designed in previously is really meant for long tendrils. And I'm going to show you guys a different system that will allow us to create a much more complex emission that hopefully will allow us to, will give us the possibility to create a lot more complex explosions overall. But what we're missing here is not what's happening afterward. I think the entire behavior and everything is working really well. I think what we're missing here is a very interesting emission, and that's what we're going to be creating in the next video. This technique here, this method that I showed with the long tendrils is really, again, meant for long tendrils, and I wanted to show how even with that, how we can take this explosion and how we can take this sim and make it look like a huge explosion. And we've covered a variety of examples, I think three different ones, and I will share the original file and this one so you guys can see how this could be achieved and how easy it is. Actually, this one did not have a lot of the features that we added now, like the density multiplier and all. And again, what the end part here is very interesting. We don't need this part where the sim evolves after the emission is very interesting. We don't need to worry about that too much. That's just coming from the solver. We only have to focus on creating a interesting emission. So let's see the other technique, and hopefully you guys will have a lot of tools to create interesting explosions. Thank you for watching, and see you in a bit.